Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentle jammers, to the Chupacabra's lair. I'm your host, Larry, and we're back for another Ludum Dare 38 showcase here today. The game jam theme for this round was a small world, and we have another crop of 3 games to check out here today. As kind of like a news-related update, it looks like Mike definitely has all of the voting rating stuff going, so you can start voting and rating games and checking those out. And trying to make sure that everybody gets a little piece of that rating pie, because everyone needs a certain number of votes to qualify for a score, and then everyone, of course, needs to vote on a certain number of games. That's kind of how the whole shindig works. And of course, you can only vote if you have created and submitted a game. Larry, of course, had to start a game in order to post forum posts or like blog posts, but he does not vote because people got really spicy the one time that YouTubers voted on some of the games. So we're all just completely fine, just hanging out on the sidelines, cheering everybody on. So without further ado, we're going to start out here today with a jam entry called Spermicorn. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a sperm that's also a unicorn inside of a llama. So I think it's every furry's wet dream as far as games are concerned. And this is made by Tommy Flower, Fauna, and Gabba. So let's just jump in here. So this is a sort of combination game, where first we go through a little intro cinematic where the llamas get lovey-dovey. And we introduce a very lovely character who is poised to change the llama race forever. And that is Spermicorn, who kind of represents a magical mutation in the llama genome. So this game is 2 parts. First, we have to race to the llama's egg, because there's a bajillion sperm in each round of jism that is ejaculated from any animal that does that. And, well, to the winner go the spoils. So let's just jump in here. So here is our little unicorn friend. We can wriggle wibble back and forth. I'm not really sure what... Oh, we can knock things around with this ability. We can gore them. And we can also just jump through a bunch of sperms with our space button that allows us to jet forward in space. So basically, it's kind of like Speed Racer, the movie, where we're a racing sperm, and we're fighting off all these other sperms so that they don't get to the egg before we do, because we want to be the ultra sperm, because only winning sperm get to enjoy that sweet, delicious egg. And as fellow human beings that have been born, or chupacabras, or other mythical creatures, I feel like we can all understand that, because in order to be alive, you had to be the winning sperm. I'm guessing that the background is supposed to be vaguely like the vaginal canal, or something on a microscopic level, but it's kind of just a repeating, almost like watercolor pattern, which is, it's kind of neat. But I also feel like it could have some various obstacles in the background to keep us busy. Oh, and then we have the mini game that we have to complete because we've reached the end of our goal. We've raced to the finish, but unfortunately a sperm's work is never done, and we actually have to go through a little mini game where we hit the highlighted letter a whole bunch of times, and eventually we break in and get to become a real boy or girl or hermaphroditic llama thing. And I feel like this game's got a few things going on that I could definitely see being expanded upon. On the whole right now, it's pretty basic. I mean, it's just like, go maul a bunch of sperm to death, go mash a couple of letters in a minigame, and that's about it. But on the whole, it's a pretty complete package. It's got an introduction of the story of the sperm, and then it's got like a little mini-game race that's very realistic. Well, not super realistic, but it's very true to the sperm experience. I know we've all wanted to get in touch with our inner sperm at some point. And then it's also true to then you have to burst the bubble of the egg in order to become a real child. and then it's got an ending. So that's probably as complete a package as I've seen. I mean, I've played a couple other games already for this jam that have done something very similar, including Party of a Lifetime, but this one does a nice job of making like a little game that's not ridiculously crazy or obnoxious or annoying or too difficult, and that's good. That said, I could definitely see this game having a lot more to do. Like, just for the racing portion, you know, I think about a lot of endless runner type games that are kind of like an endless racetrack for ideas, because they kind of distill the idea of the race down into its most quintessential elements. And that makes me think you could have, you know, obstacles in the environment, and you could almost make this like a pseudo-educational experience where you bring in references from the actual reproductive process. So like the vagina is an acidic, terrifying place to be a creature. So like there could be blobs of acid that could kill you. There could be little bacterium that'll eat you. You could have little power-ups that would allow you to laser zap the other sperms. You got a lot of options here, and I think that the team with Tommy Flower and co. could do a lot of stuff with this game to really expand upon it. Even beyond that, like perhaps you go and you explore you could do even like the acute version of like an educational game for kids where you really explore this process for them in like a fun, colorful, not gross and sweaty kind of way like some schools do it. I mean, I remember the documentaries at my school were very graphic and intense. And then you could kind of talk about how not just like mammals or marsupials or birds or reproduce. You could talk about plants. You could talk about fish. You could talk about those robots that came from Rylos 9 to fondle our brains, but ended up liking the planet so much they had robot children, and they do that Vulcan mind meld thing. You got a lot of options there, and I think you could definitely expand on this to make a robust game of some variety. Then for this egg thing, I could see it being a little bit more in-depth of being, with each different organism that you try to inhabit or break into, it could be a different type of mini-game. So this one's like button mashing, but maybe instead of just mashing the button, then as you get deeper into the game, you have to learn how to type really quick in order to accomplish the thing. Like typing out like a message that you see above or something like that. And then maybe like a Tetris-y mini-game. You got lots of options there, so I'd be interesting to see where that goes. I definitely like the hand-drawn appeal of the game. That kind of definitely gets the childish cartooniness across. That's a nice touch, and it's very consistent throughout the entire game. And then, of course, the theme itself is, you know, small world. It doesn't really get much smaller than the cellular level unless you want to watch a bunch of atomic signatures fight each other on the atomic level to form, like, covalent bonds and become a compound. So, nice job. I'm just, you know, the gameplay is just really basic. I just chalk that up a lot of the times to... There's not a lot to say about the time that you get to make this game, and it even looks like the team has written about what their challenges were on the game submission page, about throwing out the extra ideas that maybe would take too long to flesh out, and that's basically what Ludum Dare is all about. You're trying to distill your idea down into the easiest to apply form, and get it out the door so people can play it and vote on it. So, nice job. I like it, but it's just kind of basic. Alright, next up we've got Asteroid Hopper. I was about to say Hunter, but that's an old retro game that I enjoyed as a kid. But no, this is a puzzle-based game. A very familiar type of puzzle-based game that many people might be familiar with if they ever spent some of their younger days perusing the Newgrounds site for the latest Flash game. And that is, we are playing as a cute little astronaut. Did I say who made this? This is made by Wyam. It's a compo entry, which means Wyam is fancy and did this alone and solo. And this is a game where you have to use your momentum in space, because in space there's no friction to slow you down, and you land on different asteroids in order to get to a swirling green interstellar portal that takes you to the next level. And this is a very classic puzzle, and I think the first time I really got tormented by one of these was back when I was playing Pokemon, and each one of the gyms, if you ever played Pokemon, or you may or may not remember, had a particular unique puzzle to them that you had to do in order to reach the end gym leader. And the ice or like water gym was all about sliding on the floor, and then you have to hit an obstacle so that you don't careen back to the start. And this is very similar, except if you mess it up, you careen off into the dead of space, and then nobody hears you scream. Which, I guess it could be worse. I mean, no one really wants to hear someone scream. But it's a very tried and true puzzle game, and I've always really enjoyed these. And then as you get deeper into the game, you get introduced to different puzzle mechanics like little asteroids that disintegrate over time, and you have to time your disintegrations so that you hit them at the right time and go through them into your destination. And this is one of those right now, I do believe, where we're trying to smoosh into this so that as we hit it the second time, we blast through it and then hit the portal. And there's a lot of stuff you could do with a game like this. Like, I like it, it's tried and true. But the only problem with tried and true is that tried and true games end up feeling a little bit generic in a way that makes people, you know, they'd like it, but they might not like it over an alternative game, if you know what I mean. So you got a lot of options in this battleground, so you got to be careful. So that means you got to find unique concepts to kind of flesh it out before you get going any deeper. And that could be things like adding portals, adding reverse gravity, polarity beacon thingamaboppers. You got lots of options there. And I think you could go completely nuts with them. I mean, again, like I tell a lot of people that work with space, like just look at Star Trek or Stargate or Star Wars even, and you can get a whole vast plethora of different interstellar mechanics that might give you something interesting to do. Like maybe you could add like an evil sandworm that will attempt to eat you. And if you go past it at the wrong time, it'll eat you, like the Sarlacc pit from, you know, when Luke was trying to get away from Jabba the Hutt. So you got a lot of options there, and I definitely think you could explore them. So right now I'm trying to destroy this little asteroid so that I can fall into this portal. Now, one of the pieces of criticism I do have for this is that as somebody who sometimes plays games with my glasses off, or even just not really paying super close attention at first, these asteroids look very similar to one another, just with some extra bits missing. And it might be interesting if you gave them a different color or a different overall shape, like say, you know, like a round shape, so that people could distinguish it better from the background. As it stands right now, it's a little difficult to do that. And I actually spent a lot of time on one particular mission just because I couldn't quite figure out what in the flip I was supposed to do necessarily. So that's what I wanted. There we go. I eventually got there. The other reason I really like these games is you can kind of just tune out and just let your fingers fidget with your keyboard a bit, and eventually you'll suss out what you need to do without a whole lot of fuss or fidgeting. Well, a lot of fidgeting, because that's kind of the name of the game here. But either way, you got a lot of options there. So I like the game. The graphics are very simple, and I feel like you could definitely go a little bit more complex there, but that's just a personal preference thing. You could just package this with a lot more stuff in it, and then you'd be good to go. The other thing I have an issue with the graphics is that this is space. Like, this is kind of like the easy project when you're in art school, and that is to say, like, space is big. There's a lot of stuff in space. So you could conceivably put, you know, nebulas in the background with just a few pixels. You could put a sun. You could put spaceships, UFOs, a giant bacon death ray. I mean, I'm not necessarily Captain Big on bacon death rays, but bacon death rays are pretty tasty. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced a bacon death ray firsthand, but I think they're the bee's knees. So maybe that's just me. So overall, I like the concept. It's a good mixture of like the right sounds and the mechanics, and you start to add things as you go deeper into the game. I feel like you just need to go for depth now to add some uniqueness to it, because I'm actually about to review a game called Orblock C that is very much the same type of concept for the game. And, you know, they just went crazy with the different sci-fi mechanics, so you just kind of got to find a way to distinguish yourself and find, like, a very specific kind of theme that goes along through your game and all the mechanics, and you're good to go. So nice job, Yam, or Yam, and I will catch you next time. Let me know if you expand upon this, because you could definitely do, like, a mobile game or just a full-fledged version of this game that would be very easy to release through Steam at a very, you know, simple rate. Last up on the docket here today, we have Raced Against Ferrum Gigantes, or Race Against Really Big Old Robots. And this is another Jam entry, and this one is made by Scott Bashir? No, that was the guy from Deep Space Nine, although I did like that character. We've got art by Bram Nyland, or Norland, and then feedback/testing from Jacques Nyland, or Jacques? I'm terrible with foreign names, or any names in general, so I apologize if I'm butchering your names. And this is a game that is sort of an endless racing simulator, where you have to race around with the most delicate car that you ever drove in GTA through a city filled with rampaging giants that are robotic in nature. That also kind of looks like it's made from all of the various versions of the TARDIS from the Doctor Who TV show. Or at least that's kind of how I pictured it while I was racing around. So let's just jump in here and do the stuff with the things. So basically, this is our life. We've got a nice convertible car. We've got this lovely, robust city, a tiny little small world here, filled with giants that would like to smoosh us. And that's about it. Like, we just get a high score by going as long as we can, as fast as we can, without getting smooshed by any of the giants that will try to stomp us if we get too close to them, and also not crashing into any of the buildings. Because I don't know if you know this about sports cars, but they're not technically designed to run in demolition derbies, necessarily. But it does the trick when you're trying not to get exploded by giants, at least up until a point. There's also a lovely selection of different musical tracks. I don't know if these were made specifically for the jam, but you can swap between them by hitting the spacebar. And it's an oddly not romantic, but relaxing experience. That's the other R word I was looking for. That you can just kind of tune out and try to enjoy the horrifying landscape of murder robots. Everybody's favorite robots. And that's really about it. It's kind of like just a basic endless runner concept, but more of like an open world endless runner game. And now that I think about it, I don't think, besides playing like a couple of weird janky Flash games once upon a time, that I ever necessarily played any open world endless runner games, especially not on mobile, where controlling something like this is a little bit questionable at best. But I kind of want to say I like the concept, but it's really, really basic right now. Because it's just, you have a car, the car works pretty nice. Like, I'll be honest, the car drives alright. Like, it's not sticky. Like, a lot of cars that you drive, they feel like they're kind of slidey, or that they kind of get hung up on different objects in the world. The only thing I don't like is that the reverse controls are not reversed. So that, like, when I back up to the... Actually, it is. Never mind. I'm just crazy in the head. Scratch that. The backup controls are reversed. So that works just fine. I was just hitting the wrong button. But, no, the controls are nice, and the world oddly doesn't make me barfy because it's just at the right angle. But there's a couple things. A, I mean, that looks like the robot from the Iron Giant. That might have been a fun little nod to the Iron Giant, as you're just looking for a robot that you could use that would kind of be instantly recognizable by people. But if you wanted to really expand upon this, you gotta be careful, especially because I think that was a movie that's owned by Disney, and Disney doesn't like it when you touch their stuff. I mean, and then you get other examples of companies that'll DMCA your stuff off the web, like, I think last time we had No Mario Sky that people played the heck out of, and then Nintendo just hit that thing before Ludum Dare was even over. So, I think if you kind of change that to a more generic clockwork robot from, like, say... when were those little wind-up robots that, like, are famous in the retro sci-fi world created? Were those the 60s or the 70s? Well, if you kind of made, like, a generic Godzilla robot to use, and then you filled this game with some classic elements of endless runners, like other obstacles or environments that you could end up in, and I think you'd be good to go. Like, you could turn this into a fun, open-world, endless runner where as you get going further and further, the terrain is continuously randomly generated, and then you can eventually, like, end up in, like, a cool, futuristic sci-fi, or maybe even, like, a retro sci-fi farmland full of UFOs that want to abduct you as they, like, in the background are abducting cows and things. And then, I mean, you got lots of options there to kind of simplify and expand upon this. And maybe even give people the option to play a version that doesn't necessarily have it so that your car only takes 1 point of damage. Because I think the 1 point of damage thing is my biggest hang-up. Especially because I can't pull any, like, sharp last-minute maneuvers. Like, I should be able to drive up to these robots, and as they're trying to stomp me, I should be able to swerve suddenly and go through their legs and be like, na-na-na-na-boo-boo, you can't catch Larry. But I do like the concept. It's just, again, it's a very, at this point, it's just a very basic setup. It's a little race car that you can race around in, trying not to get smooshed, and that's very solid. The graphics aren't much to write home about, but again, they're very solid in that they all kind of simplify. They're simple, and they match up. You don't have, like, a combination of pixel art and then an oddly placed, low-poly 3D model that looks like it's glitching through the environment. And my biggest qualm has always been, you know, not so much that your graphics are low-res, but just that it all looks like it belongs together, and not like you scraped it up from the bottom of the bargain bin when you went to Kmart earlier. I think that's really it, like adding different obstacles and components from an endless runner, like power-ups you can get, fun little, like, nods to a hidden background story that's going on. Like, maybe you're just a playboy millionaire kid whose dad, like, gave him a trust fund, but his dad's been kidnapped by aliens, so you gotta Duke Nukem your way across the country in a slick convertible Ferrari and try to stop the crazy giant derpy robots before they smoosh the world in their weird dance party. You got a lot of options, and I'm definitely digging the vibe of, say, a procedurally generated endless running experience. So, just to re-clarify, the theme here with the small world, it's a literal small planet that the car is driving on. It's a small car, and we're fighting against giant robots. I think that fits pretty decently. Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid game. Like, it plays well, the theme is there, the graphics aren't crazy, but they're there, and there's some nice, relaxing tunes. So good stuff. Nice job, gentlemen. And I'd love to see this expanded upon, although I might be a little biased in that I really like endless runner games, especially when they're done well. So, very nice job. That'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host, Larry. The Ludum Dare 38 voting period is, I believe, in full swing. I'm fairly certain because people have been talking about it in other, like, sort of blog posts on the site. I'll be around all throughout the voting period like I normally do, taking a look at people that have submitted me games, both in the form of my form, which you can find linked on the little blog post and also in the video description. And you can also find all the links to these games on their game page, where you can rate them, play them, and all that fun stuff. And that's about it. I'll probably catch you guys and gals next time. If you've got cool games to send me, please do so, however you like. I check most of the ways that you can message me. If I haven't, do be sure to try using the form. I made it especially for you. And I'll catch you next time. Have a good one, everybody, and toodaloo.